your flow, you will see that all of the negative team's questions are answered in these following points. This last speech, I provide three main voting issues, three main arguments that really sum up the ground. The first argument is that of gun exports fail regardless. Gun exports fail regardless. And just to clarify, these 3 points actually are the acronym of GUN. So the first is gun exports fail regardless. The idea that the negative team really brings up is that because we've already sent some and because they might still gain some after our plan, we should just keep on sending them. But this mindset is inherently flawed because a drug dealer can't justify his sales simply because his place might be filled if he stops selling them. This is the mindset of the negative team that because we won't completely solve the problem, we shouldn't try at all. Yet this kind of contradicts their own ideas because we've gained a lot of advocacy from the negative team's arguments. In their 1NC, they mentioned several things. They had evidence that 70% of crimes in Honduras were committed with firearms. They said they had read evidence that our stockpiles are vulnerable in Honduras, and they also read evidence that China was a threat. All of those we completely agree with. I'll dive further into those later on in this speech. Another argument was that of smuggling an illegal flow. There was no specific evidence towards Honduras. That was simply a hypothetical argument, talking about other countries such as Guatemala or Mexico, but it didn't actually apply to our plan. It was also outdated. It wasn't as recent as 2025. They also mentioned under the same idea that citizens were harmed and gangs would be helped, kind of comparing it to gun laws, which I actually responded to in my very first speech because there is not a rule of law, which makes it completely different. My main response under this is that of nothing but harm. Nothing but harm. They've not really brought up evidence specific to Honduras, but we have, and we actually see nothing but harm is happening with these gun sales. No matter what, these guns are not going to help the people. They actually harm them. The Association for a More Just Society in February 2019 said that, quote, investigations in this one instance connected at least 38 high-ranking police and 43 patrol officers with the MS-13 gang, end quote. And then according to Proceso Digital, Honduras website, in March 3rd of 2025, very recent, it says that, quote, the year 2025 began with a hard blow to the police authorities in terms of citizen security, with more than 5 massacres or multiple deaths in the first 2 months and nearly 35 murders. There are few court cases in the courts of justice, and according to the National Commissioner for Human Rights, more than 600 complaints of abuse by the police, end quote. That is insane. We see that there are 600 complaints of abuse by the police in just this year alone. That is something that we should not be fueling, and that's exactly what we would do if we were to pass a negative ballot. So ultimately, we see in this in 2 subpoints under this 1 point. The first is that of a failed justice system. A failed justice system. Even if every single one of the negative team's arguments were absolutely true, the fact that there's a failed justice system means that guns will not help in the least. Even if the police were not corrupt, they still couldn't do anything because without a justice system that works, they can't convict anyone. Nobody can go to prison. No crime will actually be stopped. And then secondly, that of police cartels. Police cartels shouldn't be a term that exists, but it does in Honduras, and we're sending arms to them. The next argument is that of, my second overall point is that of unaccounted for. That's the U in the gun acronym, so unaccounted for. They brought up evidence that approval is needed in the current system, an idea of ATF, and another thing as well, but we have 2 points to this. My partner already responded to it, but I'll be recapping what he said. First, it only approves exports, it doesn't check them. So it's only approving exports, not actually checking them. And this is fundamentally different. We can export things all day, but it doesn't mean that we are checking them. In the current system, we've seen only 2 in-use checks. That's my second response, of only 2 in-use checks. Now I'm going to move on to my third and final argument, the in, and that's not equipping criminals. Not equipping criminals. They say that it makes China closer. Honduras is already close with China. We have no leverage because all we are sending is to the black market, and that is something the negative team also agrees with. They also didn't bring up specific evidence for that, but also they said that there was no provision. This was talking about the military base. And really, we already responded to this, but really, we aren't selling arms to ourselves. So we're not stopping selling arms to ourselves. So that's not really an argument that really holds weight in this round. We are the only team who has brought up evidence from Honduras sources and from 2025, so let's stop sending arms that are used against